At 20 minutes to 5 in the morning, in a gravel yard outside Columbus, Ohio, a driver with 26 years and 3 million miles behind him climbs into a day cab. No sleeper on the back of it, which means no bunk, no curtains, no little refrigerator wedged in behind the seat. Just a steering wheel and a route that ends at the same gate it started from, before supper. 10 years ago, he would have called this a demotion. Today, he has a list of friends asking him how to get in. All across the country, drivers who spent entire careers running coast to coast are handing back the keys to the sleeper truck and taking local work. However, this is not burnout, and nobody in this business is going soft. Of the 3.5 million Americans holding a commercial license, 4 of them work within a day's drive of their own kitchen every single year. And in 2026, the reasons finally stopped being close. Veteran drivers quit reading the recruiting billboards along Interstate 40 a long time ago. The ones with the big number and the shiny new Freightliner and the words "up to" in very small letters. What they read instead is the settlement sheet that comes out Friday afternoon, after the fuel, after the tolls, after the 4 hours they sat at a dock in Laredo watching a forklift driver take his lunch. What has been showing up on that sheet for the last 3 years turned a trickle into something the recruiters cannot staff around. Number 1 on this list is the one nobody wants to say out loud at the fuel counter. It has nothing to do with money, or hours, or the body. It happened on a stretch of Texas interstate in 2025, and every driver who has run that road since knows exactly what I am talking about. We will get there. Number 8. The mileage premium that stopped being a premium. For most of trucking history, the deal was simple, and everybody understood it. Over the road paid more because it cost you more. You gave up your bed, your family, your Sunday dinners, and your zip code. And in exchange, the money beat anything a man could earn locally without a college degree. That premium was the whole point of the sacrifice. Then came the freight recession. Spot rates on the load board fell hard and stayed down. Carriers trimmed mileage pay, brokers squeezed, and diesel refused to cooperate. Drivers who had been running 1,400 and 1,600 miles a week found themselves parked 3 days in a truck stop lot in Tucumcari, New Mexico, scrolling a phone screen full of loads that paid less than the one they turned down on Monday. Sitting does not pay. Sitting costs. Meanwhile, the local jobs quietly caught up. LTL city drivers working under a union contract, food service drivers running route trucks out of a distribution center in Ohio, fuel haulers pulling into gas stations at 5 in the morning, ready-mix drivers, dedicated store delivery. Hourly work with overtime after 40. Not glamorous, not the open road, but steady, and increasingly competitive with what the long haul actually pays, once you strip out the up to. The tell is in the turnover numbers. At the big truckload carriers, the ones that fill the sleeper fleets, driver turnover ran somewhere near 90% a year for most of the last 2 decades. That is not a workforce. That is a revolving door with a training school bolted to the side of it, and veterans know exactly what a revolving door means. It means the job is not holding people who have options. That is the money on paper. This next one is about the hours that never make it onto paper at all. Number 7. The clock that runs whether you are earning or not. A driver paid by the mile only earns when the wheels are turning. Everything else in his day is volunteer work. 4 hours in the yard at a receiver in Fontana, California, waiting on a door. 2 hours parked on the shoulder of Interstate 80 in Wyoming because the wind gates came down. A morning burned in a dealership service bay because the regen light came on somewhere outside Amarillo. None of it pays a dime, and all of it eats the 14-hour window federal rules give him. Detention is one of the great open secrets of this business. Federal transportation studies have put the value of driver time lost sitting at docks in the billions of dollars a year, and most shippers still do not start the clock until 2 hours have gone by. 2 free hours, every stop, taken out of a man's life while he watches a forklift move somebody else's pallets. Then, in December of 2017, the electronic logging device mandate landed, and the last bit of give in the system went with it. Whatever anyone thinks about paper logs, and there are honest arguments on both sides, the practical result was that a driver lost the ability to manage his own day. The clock runs in a server now. 14 hours means 14 hours, whether he spent them hauling freight across Nebraska or watching a warehouse yard in Joliet, Illinois through a windshield. Now look at that same man on a local hourly route. He clocks in at the gate. The dock is slow, he gets paid. Traffic backs up on the beltway, he gets paid. The truck breaks, he gets paid. He crosses 40 hours, he gets time and a half. Same trade, same license, same skill. One version pays him for his time, the other only pays him for his motion. Drivers ran that comparison, and a lot of them stopped arguing with it. Time is one thing. This next problem takes something a driver cannot buy back at any price, which is a safe place to shut the truck down. Number 6. There is nowhere to park, and there never was going to be. Depending on which federal study you read, the United States has somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 truck parking spaces, against roughly 3.5 million commercial drivers. The number that gets cited most often is about 1 space for every 11 trucks that need one. Live that number for a week, and you understand what it does to a career. Around 3 in the afternoon, an over-the-road driver stops thinking about the load and starts thinking about the night. Not where the freight goes, where the truck goes. He starts calling ahead, checking apps at a fuel island, doing math on how far the clock will stretch. Industry surveys have found drivers giving up close to an hour of drive time a day to the parking hunt, which works out to thousands of dollars a year in miles never run. And when the lot is full, and the lots along Interstate 81 in Virginia and Interstate 5 through the Central Valley of California fill by early evening, the options get ugly fast. On-ramps, abandoned strip mall lots with weeds in the cracks, the shoulder of an exit ramp with the flashers going, which is illegal in most states and dangerous in all of them. Every year, drivers get killed sleeping in trucks parked where trucks should never have had to park. Congress has talked about truck parking funding for years. Some money has moved, nothing close to the scale of the problem has been built, and no state legislature ever won an election promising more truck stops next to somebody's subdivision. The local driver's answer to all of this takes about 4 seconds. He parks at the yard, or he parks the day cab at the curb in front of his house, and he sleeps in a bed that belongs to him. The road takes a man's time, and it takes his sleep. What sits at number 1 on this list is not interested in either one. Number 5. What it costs just to live inside the truck. Nobody puts this on the recruiting billboard. Living in a truck is expensive, and it got a lot more expensive over the last few years. Start with food. A driver eating 3 meals a day at truck stop counters between Little Rock and Flagstaff runs up a food bill that would shock anybody who eats out of a refrigerator. Even the disciplined man, the one with a 12-volt cooler and a crock pot going in the bunk, is buying groceries at inflated prices at whatever store he can back a 70-foot rig into. Then showers. Then laundry, done at 11 at night in a machine that half works. Then the secure parking he now has to reserve and pay for outside Memphis and Chicago because the free lot is a theft risk. Then the fuel burned idling through a July night in Phoenix or a January night in Fargo because the alternative is heat stroke or frostbite, and not every truck has an APU that works. None of that is reimbursed. All of it comes out of the same mileage check that got smaller. A driver can be running big miles and still watch the road eat several $100s a month before he has sent a nickel home. The local driver eats his wife's cooking. He showers in his own bathroom. His laundry gets done in a machine he owns. It sounds almost too small to matter next to rates and tolls and insurance, and it is exactly the kind of quiet leak that decides whether a man is actually ahead at the end of the year. That is what the road takes out of the wallet. This next one is what it takes out of the man. Number 4. Eventually, the body sends the bill. Sit down with drivers in their 50s and 60s, and the conversation always ends up in the same place. Not rates, not brokers, their health. 30 years of sitting 11 hours a day in a vibrating air ride seat does specific, documented damage. Lower back, knees and hips from climbing in and out of the cab and up onto a flatbed deck. Shoulders from cranking landing gear and throwing tarps in a Wyoming crosswind. Weight gain from truck stop food and a job that offers almost no chance to move. Sleep apnea, which the industry screens for now, and which can end a career on a physical. Type 2 diabetes, at rates that run well above the general working population. Hypertension, hearing loss from 4 decades of engine noise a foot below the floorboard. And underneath all of it, the thing nobody schedules, which is medical care. A local driver who needs a colonoscopy books it for a Tuesday. An over-the-road driver has a delivery appointment in Salt Lake City on Tuesday. The physical therapy the doctor ordered twice a week is simply not compatible with being in Oregon on Monday and Georgia on Thursday. So it gets pushed and pushed until it becomes the thing that takes the medical card away entirely. There is a particular kind of dread in this business around the DOT physical. Every 2 years, sometimes every year, a man's entire livelihood comes down to a blood pressure cuff and a urine sample in a strip mall clinic between a nail salon and a phone store. Drivers who have watched friends fail that exam at 58 with no pension and no second trade to fall back on start doing very different math about the next 10 years. Home every night is not a lifestyle preference for a driver in his 50s. It is preventive medicine. If you are riding along with this one, hit subscribe. This channel covers trucking, the American highway, and the working life every week. Number 3. The arithmetic on everything he missed. The standard over-the-road schedule is 3 weeks out for 2 or 3 days home. Some carriers run 5 weeks out. Run that pattern for a career, and the numbers get hard to look at. A driver on that rotation is home somewhere around 30 to 50 nights a year. His children are effectively raised by somebody else, while he pays for the house they grow up in. Every driver has the list. The graduation watched on a phone screen at a rest area in Wyoming. The funeral he could not get home for because the load was already loaded and the appointment was already set. The anniversary spent in a Love's parking lot outside Amarillo. The year the grandkids changed so much between visits that somebody had to introduce them. Divorce runs hard through this industry, and no honest person in trucking pretends otherwise. Marriages fail on absence more than on anything else, and this is the part that hits older drivers hardest of all. The trade was supposed to be worth it. The money was supposed to justify it. When mileage pay was strong and a man could out-earn every neighbor on his street, he could look at the sacrifice and call it a fair deal. Take the premium away, and all that is left is the absence. That is when a driver who never once considered a local route starts reading the job board in a truck stop parking lot at 3 in the morning. And for a lot of them, the thing that finally settled the question was something they saw with their own eyes through the windshield. If you ran over the road and you finally parked it, tell me in the comments how many years you gave it and what the last straw actually was. I read every one of them. 2 reasons left. Both of them explain why this is happening now instead of 10 years ago. Number 2. The map of the country got rebuilt underneath the trade. In 1995, if a driver in a mid-sized American city wanted to be home every night, his options were thin. A handful of union LTL city jobs, some construction hauling, a beer distributor, a fuel hauler. Those jobs were guarded like heirlooms. Men held them for 30 years and their sons waited for them to retire. Then online shopping rebuilt the American landscape, and it happened fast enough that a driver could watch it out the windshield. Cornfields along Interstate 70 in Ohio turned into distribution centers the size of small towns. The same thing happened across Indiana, across Georgia, out through the inland empire of California, and up the Interstate 81 corridor in Pennsylvania. Retailers built their own dedicated fleets and painted their own names on the doors. Regional grocery networks expanded. Final mile delivery became an industry of its own. Every one of those warehouses needs trucks moving in and out on short runs, all day, every day, and those runs end where they started. So the scarce jobs stopped being scarce. A driver with a clean record, a few years of experience, and a doubles endorsement is now genuinely in demand within 50 miles of his own kitchen. The recruiting ads cannot fight that, because it changed the geography rather than the pay scale. It used to be that leaving over the road meant leaving trucking. Now it just means leaving the sleeper. And then there is the last reason. The one that made a lot of veterans quietly move up their timeline. Number 1. The long haul is the lane the machines want first. In 2025, driverless trucks began hauling commercial freight between Dallas and Houston on Interstate 45. Not a demonstration and not a closed track. Paying loads on a public interstate with an empty driver's seat. Companies have been expanding that kind of operation across the Sun Belt, along the corridors through Texas, Arizona, and the Southeast, where the weather is mild and the interstate runs flat and straight for hundreds of miles. Now be careful with this one, because the internet has been promising the end of truck driving since about 2016, and 3.5 million Americans still hold a commercial license. The programs have already had setbacks, and at least one put a human observer back in the seat at a manufacturer's request. Nobody is replacing this workforce next year. Chains on Donner Summit, a driver strapping a load of steel in the rain, a snow-packed pass in Wyoming with a wind advisory. None of that is close to solved. But look at which work is being automated first. The long, flat, boring, uninterrupted interstate miles, the exact miles the over-the-road driver gets paid for. Then look at which work is hardest to automate. Backing a 53-foot trailer into a loading dock on a narrow street in Boston. Hand unloading a route truck at a restaurant with a two-wheeler and a ramp. Tarping a flatbed. Reading a job site. Talking to the receiver who says the appointment is wrong. The old hands did not read a technology paper to figure this out. They drove Interstate 45 and passed one of those trucks in the left lane and saw the empty seat go by at 70 miles an hour. A man with 10 or 15 working years left, deciding today which half of the trade to spend them in, looks at that and picks the half that requires hands. And the men who already parked it for good watch that same footage with something else entirely, because they know exactly what it took to learn what that empty seat is standing in for. 40 years of weather, and dispatch, and judgment nobody ever wrote down. Now the honest part, because this list would be worthless without it. Local is not a paradise, and any driver who tells you it is has been off the road long enough to get nostalgic. Local means an alarm clock at 4 in the morning, 5 days a week, forever. It means touch freight, which means a two-wheeler and a ramp in your back doing what a forklift used to do. It means backing into alleys in Philadelphia and Chicago that were laid out for horse carts, with a customer standing there watching. It means a supervisor you see every single day, instead of a dispatcher you can hang up on from 3 states away. The money is not automatically better either. Plenty of local jobs pay less than a strong over-the-road run, and a driver who steps down from the sleeper without checking the hourly rate, the overtime rules, and the health insurance can genuinely go backwards. And there is one thing local work cannot give back, which is the road itself. Sunrise over the cabbage patch on Interstate 84, coming down out of the Rockies with the whole state laid out in front of the windshield. The particular quiet of a truck stop at 4 in the morning in Nebraska, with nothing moving but the reefers. Nobody who loved that trades it happily, and a lot of these men grieve it. Remember that driver in the yard outside Columbus? The one in the day cab with no bunk? He is not out of trucking. He will run his route, park at the gate, and be at his own kitchen table by 6. He gave up the horizon and kept the trade. That is the deal a whole generation of American drivers is quietly making in 2026. And if you are the one running that math right now, or you have got a son or a nephew about to run it, I put the whole thing down on paper. It is called the driver's settlement sheet, and it walks through exactly what to check before taking a local job. The hourly rate against the mileage rate. The overtime rule most drivers get wrong. What to ask about touch freight and start times before signing anything. And the health insurance line that decides whether a man is actually ahead at the end of the year. It is free, and it is the first link down in the description. Takes about 10 seconds. And if you want the other half of this story, the 10 cities veteran drivers refuse to run at any price, that video is on screen now. Keep the shiny side up, and we will see you down the road.